The variables at play here are extreme. We're talking over 400 guests, a staggering $500,000 budget, and a room absolutely packed with the state's most powerful elites, politicians, judges, CEOs, and in the dead center of it all is table number 1, the head table. This is exactly where the groom's father, Arthur Vance, is instructed to sit by the bride's mother, Victoria Sterling. You know, Victoria had assured her future son-in-law, Julian, that she wanted his father to feel included.
The calculated nature of this humiliation is, well, it's striking. Think about Arthur Vance for a second. This is a man who raised his son alone, literally pouring concrete in sub-zero winters. He walks up to his table and sees his name, Arthur Vance, printed beautifully. But right beneath it, paid actor, do not engage. The reaction from Victoria Sterling, the architect of this cruelty, is just this razor-thin smile over her champagne flute, followed by her brother loudly barking with laughter. And the spread of this joke? Chillingly efficient. In 30 seconds, whispers are rippling through the room. 400 elites genuinely start believing this older construction worker is just a prop, a joke to humiliate him at his own son's wedding. 30 years of sacrifice reduced to a prank on a piece of cardstock.
Julian, the groom, feels the energy in the room shift. He picks up the card, reads it, and instead of screaming or throwing a glass, he does something far more devastating. He calmly unpins his white rose boutonniere, drops it onto his gold-rimmed plate, and just looks at his father. "Dad, let's go home. We're in the wrong house." In a single breath, Julian sacrifices his marriage, his alignment with the Sterling Empire, and that $500,000 wedding, all to protect his father's dignity. He just walks his dad out into the night without a single backward glance. To truly understand why this clash was not just a tragedy, but an absolute inevitability, we have to dial the timeline back. Section 2, the mud and the elite. Let's forensically contrast their foundations. After his wife left him and his 4-year-old son, Arthur grabbed a rusted toolbox and went to work. Graveyard shifts, pouring concrete in sub-zero winters until his hands actually bled. Julian used to do his math homework under the glare of a halogen work lamp in freezing, half-framed garages. Now contrast that with the Sterlings. A sprawling fortress of marble and glass, generations of old money, private finishing schools, and corporate lawyers who literally laugh if a guest asks for tap water instead of their $400 scotch. Two fundamentally, structurally incompatible materials. Which brings us to a rather telling definition: the mud. During a previous dinner, Victoria's daughter, Clara, expressed this naive fascination that Arthur actually built his own neighborhood, mentioning her family rarely sees the people who handle the mud. Victoria herself chimed in, admiring the working class's raw endurance, but strictly from a safe distance. She even warned Arthur that the Sterling name couldn't afford any, quote, structural weaknesses. But here is the fatal flaw in their hubris. The people who handle the mud? They are the only ones who see exactly what is buried beneath it. And that leads us to the secret hidden beneath 30 years of PR and corporate rebranding. Section 3, a flawed structural integrity. Let's map out this timeline. Go back 30 years. Sterling Corp had just built their absolute crown jewel, the 30-story Sterling Development Plaza. Arthur was actually the foreman on that subterranean foundation. In 1996, a senior Sterling executive ordered them to bypass city structural integrity codes. Why? To save $7 million on high-grade steel. When Arthur's mentor refused to sign off, he was immediately fired and blacklisted. Sterling just brought in a corrupt inspector to forge the documents and rubber stamp it. But before they were escorted off the site, Arthur and his mentor quietly took the original core samples, the real blueprints, and the handwritten orders telling them to bury the discrepancies under the mud. For 3 decades, Arthur kept that exact evidence locked in a fireproof safe under his floorboards. He believed in peace, but, well, Victoria Sterling wanted to talk about structural weaknesses. The morning after the wedding, the balance of power violently shifts. Section 4, the collapse. 32. I want to state that number with complete detachment because it tells the whole story. By 6 a.m. the morning after the reception, Arthur's old rotary phone had 5 missed calls. By 8 a.m., 14. By noon, that number hit 32. 32 frantic missed calls from Victoria, Clara, and Sterling corporate headquarters. The panic had officially set in. The retaliation here is completely surgical. Julian strikes first. Step 1. As a brilliant lead structural architect himself, Julian swiftly withdraws his firm's architectural certification for Sterling's new multi-billion-dollar waterfront project. Step 2. Without that crucial certification, the banks immediately pull their funding. Step 3. The Sterling board enters an absolute tailspin. Victoria is suddenly calling Arthur, practically begging the paid actor for business advice, promising public apologies if he can just get Julian to stop.
But the thing is, Julian wasn't the one holding the master switch. Arthur had already made a quiet midnight delivery. Without any anger, just devastating accuracy, he sent a small package to the State Department of Building Safety and copying the FBI. Inside were those original 1996 core samples and the forged manifest for Sterling Plaza.
So, when Victoria is on the phone begging, Arthur delivers the fatal blow. He calmly tells her the building you're currently sitting in is officially classified as an active public hazard. He reminds her that while some materials look great, when a foundation is built on lies and cheap steel, it really doesn't take much to bring the whole house down. He tells her to enjoy the collapse.
The absolute forensic destruction of the Sterling family took less than 6 months. It's staggering. Sterling Plaza is evacuated and condemned. The family's assets are instantly stripped by legal fees, fines, and criminal investigations. Clara and her brothers actually have to sell their sprawling family estate just to pay the initial retainers for the defense lawyers. And that elite social circle from Table 1, they vanish completely, deleting Victoria from their contacts like she never even existed.
The empire is gone. But there's one final, hidden twist to this narrative that even Julian didn't know. Section 5. The underlying truth.
Just before the corporate bankruptcy is finalized, Clara makes one last desperate attempt. She shows up at Arthur's modest, linoleum-floored house, begging Julian for a second chance, accusing his father of destroying her family. And Julian's unyielding response is entirely based on his principles. "My father didn't destroy your family, Clara. Your family built an empire on a rotten foundation and expected me to live in it. I'm an architect. I don't build on top of garbage." Now, in the aftermath, people naturally wondered how Julian's architectural firm managed to secure the rights to that waterfront project so quickly. They wondered who the anonymous investor was, the one who bought out the Sterling assets for pennies on the dollar during the bankruptcy auction. Well, here is the staggering revelation. It was Arthur Vance.
You see, Arthur was never just a laborer. When his mentor passed away 15 years ago, he didn't leave his company to the banks. He quietly left the underlying shares of his holding company to Arthur. So for 2 decades, perfectly camouflaged by his working-class exterior, Arthur was accumulating the land rights beneath the very buildings the Sterlings were constructing. He didn't care about crystal chandeliers or expensive scotch. He cared about building real security for his son. He wasn't just a guest at that wedding. He owned the dirt beneath their feet. He was secretly the landlord of the entire city.
Victoria Sterling honestly believed a little piece of cardstock could put a working man in his place. But when pressure was applied, her elite family crumbled like cheap plaster. Meanwhile, the construction worker and his son stood perfectly tall, rooted incredibly deep in solid earth. Because as Arthur put it, the truth is just like concrete. You can try to hide whatever you want beneath it, but once it sets, it holds the entire world in place. It's a masterclass in profound patience, exposing the illusion of power and the uncompromising reality of structural integrity. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to think about. What is your foundation built on?